Hello and good morning, dear YouTube friends. If you saw my eyes move around the screen, that is because I am actually filming with my phone camera, and I have a new phone. So I was looking, where is the camera now? Because now the camera is integrated in the screen. So I was looking for the camera lens. So hello. For those who don't know me yet, my name is Mandy van Goeie. I am a Dutch artist illustrator. And I'm having my Monday morning coffee, and I figured I wanted to just have a little studio chat. So today here, I'm Dutch, so it's my prerogative to be talking about the weather, right? But today, right now, it's really grey. But earlier today, and I'll montage the proof into this video. We had a beautiful stormy sky with blue patches and chasing clouds and seagulls that were right now as I speak there's a seagull flying right in front of my window, and they're doing tricks, or they're sort of like playing with the wind. So I really love that. I think it's one of my favorite types of weather. It always gives me a lot of energy. Right now it's beginning to rain, so that usually drains away the energy. But I've got my lights on, and that's some internal sunshine. So for me, this video is also going to be sort of a test for my phone cam, an experiment, so to speak. But I also want to talk about my work, what I'm working on right now, and I want to talk about what I think is a very important topic. It's sort of a challenge that I've set for myself, and that I want to talk about and discuss, maybe even, because I know many people are dealing with the problem. That's the news, because there is so much of it and so much is going on in the world. And maybe it's time sometimes we ask ourselves, do we really need to watch the news all the time and be constantly focused on the outside world? But we'll talk about that later. First, I'll start with a sip of coffee, because I'm dying for a cup of coffee. And this time, I intend to drink my coffee before it gets cold, which I've never managed to do during a studio vlog. So, challenge for today. Let's see. I have one coffee a day, but a really good one, and enough to get me going in the morning. Right. So onto my work. I've been shooting a lot of mushrooms lately, and it's been fabulous. It's a wonderful year for photographing mushrooms. There are so many, and the variety seems way broader than it used to. Of course, that's probably not true. The reason why there seems a greater variety of mushrooms around is probably just because there is a bigger amount of mushrooms around, which is why we see them more easily. But I actually saw mushrooms this year I've never ever seen before in my life, that I've kind of been looking for. Well, I had them in the back of my mind, hoping to find them one day, and this year I've ticked them all off. Now there are only actually 2 or 3 that I really want to find, but I know they don't grow in this area of the country. So tomorrow we'll be heading over to friends on the other side of the country, and I'm going to ask my friend if he knows, because he's a biologist, and I'm going to ask him if he knows where I can perhaps find those mushrooms. And I would be so lucky if I could find them. I'll definitely show you that. It can get me so excited. I don't think anything can get me as excited as nature, as a source of inspiration. Although it's not just a source of inspiration, it's a source of life. And walking around in that, seeing the variety, the diversity. Mushrooms are fungi, and they are, of course, they are the pivotal example of what the cycle of life looks like. Because as wonderful as it is to see the mushrooms, they are growing on dead wood or dying trees, because they are, if the tree they grow on isn't dead yet, they're killing it. So it's kind of, the knife cuts both ways. But at the same time, it makes sense. In nature, it makes sense. The human world can be so senseless, so illogical and unfair sometimes. And yeah, well, nature makes a lot more sense. So right, I am doing nature drawings at the moment. Trees. No, not mushrooms. I wanted to do mushrooms, but I'm not there yet. I don't know exactly why, but I think, you know, there are stories I need to tell with trees, and right now I'm painting more natural trees, although not in a very natural way. Well, just see for yourself. This is a drawing I'm working on at the moment. I can try to keep it close, but I have no idea what this camera will do to it. But so it's not finished by far. I mean, I've almost finished the branches, not quite though. And I'm now working on the trunk of the tree. So I'm going to lay down texture in the trunk of the tree. And when all of that's done, then comes the task of making it truly 3D. So the work isn't done, and I've already worked a lot of time, spent a lot of time on this. For some reason, I like painstaking jobs. They are calming, of course, in the first place, but also it's sort of like a road of discovery you're on. You're making the work, and it's the journey that's really exciting. I always learn new things when making these things, and I've been doing lots of tree studies to learn more, to learn what they look like, to learn how to give them volume and body. Because sometimes when we draw trees, we tend to draw, you know, trunk straight up and branches on the side, like that, like a really true 2D image, almost like a slice of a tree. And I want to make my trees more majestic and round and more voluminous, like real trees are, which is an impossible thing to do on paper, of course, since it's a 2D surface, but we can at least try. So that's what I'm working on right now. And this I've been doing thumbnails lately of trees, like like these, and oh, the colour I mixed, by the way, is really, really lovely. It's a little. I met Roman Schmal, the man behind the Aquarius watercolor paints, last summer, a couple of weeks ago. I think it was the end of August or the first week of September. He came to the Netherlands and invited me to come along, which I did because I really didn't want to miss the chance. But he's got this really lovely new set of paints out, and it's I'm going to do a video about this set of paints, as it is. It's a sketches box. It's made especially for people who sketch on the go, but it's got some really unconventional color choices in there, and I think he did a really great job. Initially, I was like, are you sure you want to, you know, do this color combination? I'm so happy he did, because it's got some really great mixing options that I'm really, really big fan of. One of which is this beautiful, well, blue, greenish blue. It's got some, well, here and there some areas that remind me of verdigris, like the corroded copper, and I'm absolutely infatuated with this mix. So I've been using this tiny box of paint for a long time already, for many times already, although I didn't use much paint because I used it in the thumbnails to start with. And actually, I think that this one is also still going to be sort of a thumbnail, because I intend to scale and to make bigger trees. Not sure if it's going to be watercolor. Definitely not in graphite. Yeah. Another thing I'm also working with, like this is my graphite pencil I'm using. With I think it's an HB or a B pencil in a mechanical pencil. But I'm also working with the graphite matte pencils. Sorry, there is a frog in my throat. I think I need coffee. I think that's will solve the problem. Oh, sorry guys, I really, really needed that. I hope you've got a really great cup of coffee or tea as well while you're watching this or listening to me. So This is another tree study I did. I did a great many of these. These are already bigger thumbnails. I also did a lot of smaller thumbnails and just, you know, little bits, and I've been photographing a lot lately. Mushrooms, of course, but I've also been photographing trees. And if the weather allows, I'll head out to, well, we can't really call it forests. I think we only have one forest here in the Netherlands. The rest is just very small patches of trees. I don't want to call it forest. Let's call it woods, but woods, small size. And there is a really beautiful place to go to when you want to be in the woods. It's near Domburg and Oostkapelle in Zeeland here. And that's, it's a wind-bashed little forest where in the beginning on the land side, the trees are not regular trees, they're big as they can be. And there are a lot of rhododendrons and it's just gorgeous. Mondrian, the artist Mondrian, actually worked there and painted some of those trees, but the wind bashed the trees. So what happened is that because of the wind, the trees have grown in all kinds of shapes that are really, really irregular and very uncommon, and kids love climbing in them because they are fit for that. I'll make a video there for you because it's lovely. It's a beautiful, I think it's the most beautiful place, foresty place that we have in this area. I live in the sea area. I live by the coast, so there are no real forests here. We just have some patches of woods, but that one is a really good one. But the thing is that the forest, the woods will continue into the dunes, and the funny thing is that the trees will go into the dunes. But if this is a dune, then the trees that grow here right by the dune, so the land goes like this and the trees are like this, the canopies of the trees are all level. When you stand high on the dunes, you can see the canopy is level. So what happens here, the trees, you know, right by the dunes, the trees are not even a meter high, and a little bit further away they're 1.5 meters, 2 meters, 3 meters. But the thing is, they're still sometimes big because they grow in these, like, they've curled and curved themselves in the wind in very, very magical and uncommon ways. So that's a place I really want to go to photograph, and I really want to find out. I'm keen to find out about the mushrooms. I'm going to tap my face because I'm not sure if it's focusing on me. My former phone camera didn't really focus, and now that I'm watching the screen, I'm not completely sure it's filming full screen because I can see 2 black lines on the side. Well, a black frame. Well, let's see. Right, then the next thing I want to talk to you about has got to do with my wish to professionalize as an artist. The thing is that in recent years I've been working mainly as a teacher, online teacher, and it's lovely teaching people, but it did take away a lot of time and energy from developing my own work. So I got stuck quite a long time, and if I made work to show online, a lot of the work was intended to serve as an example or to inspire potential students to take a class. So they were not really my natural flow as in my own artistic process. And I stopped online teaching right before COVID. Ironically, December 31st, I stopped online teaching, and I took down the classes permanently. And then in February, March, there was COVID, and well, life is ironic, right? And then a lot of things happened. COVID, of course, and my health was quite an issue. If you want to know about that, you can read my blog. The last blog I wrote is about that, something I find quite difficult to open up about, but I opened up about it a little. So there's been quite a few challenges with regards to, you know, getting the job done. But also, in all honesty, there's been a lot of habits that have made it a bit difficult to get the job done. one of the habits was Facebook. I was really, really bad dealing with Facebook. I hated it, and still I checked it a lot. I was addicted to it in a kind of way. I didn't spend very much time on it, but every time I did get off Facebook, I was depressed, tired. I just didn't like the place at all for gazillion reasons. I wrote an article about that on Medium, and I can post that to the link here below the video. So anyway, I left Facebook, and well, you know, those people will say, oh, it's the best thing I've ever done. I don't like talking in superlatives, you know, per se. I think superlatives are very difficult words that are very difficult to realize. But it certainly was a very good thing that I left Facebook. And have I missed it? I mean, I think I'm away from Facebook for 2 years now. I actually have no idea. So I've really forgotten about it. Have I missed it? No. I have missed being in touch with a few people who are very active on Facebook and who choose not to be active anywhere else. I miss some of those people. But the price to pay was just too high. It was so much negative and hate mongering going on, and there was this time I knew I had to stop, and I knew it for years, and it was really difficult. You know, everyone said, Manny, that's social suicide, don't do it, you're an artist, you need to showcase your work. The thing was, Facebook wasn't doing a damn thing for a real artist, or for a professional, not unless you paid. And you know, that's the thing, when you're an artist, you don't have the budget to promote yourself all the time in that way. So, and also not the interest, to be very honest. I am not a marketing tiger, I am an artist. So I left Facebook, and I'm deliberating Instagram, because Instagram seems a really great place for an artist, but honestly, it doesn't do a thing for me. I have to be honest with you. I have to say my Instagram timeline is kind of a mess. I did clear away some of the images I felt were no longer applicable to my work and life. And still, it's not as representative of the work I've been making the past years, and so either I need to do a really, really, really big clear up there, or just stop, because it doesn't do a thing for me, to be honest. It's kind of nice to be in touch with people, and my timeline on Instagram currently is still hate-free, yay, and it's also rather news-free, yay. So, but other than that, I have to say, and I see more and more artists leaving social media, leaving Facebook, leaving Instagram, because they no longer do anything for them. You know, honestly, the thing they do is that they make people want to make what you make. I'm guilty of that too, and I've seen artists do lovely work. It's like, oh God, my fingers are itching, want to do the same. Which is one of the reasons why I rarely check my Instagram anymore, because I don't want to contaminate my own artistic flow with that of another person. Right, so, but there is another problem, there is another habit that I have, and I think it's got a lot to do with the fact that I work from home. So I am alone very, very often, and I am looking for impulses from the outside world. I want to reach out, I want to talk to people. But, you know, I gave up Facebook, Facebook was an absolutely great way to just, you know, being in touch with somebody was really just a finger click away, which was the temptation of it. But, you know, the quality of the communications was, you know, some people were very, very close to my heart, and the contact I had with them was uplifting. But the amount of human communications, that was super, super depressing, and that just took me down. That was way worse. So I left there. And the thing is, the same thing is going on with the news. I'm constantly looking for those impulses. It's like, you know, watercolorist will understand. If you are not a watercolor artist, you will probably think you're right. But it's true. Let me see if I can grab a painting. Wow. Yeah, I have a painting here. I have to be very careful now with my coffee and the painting on the table. proved to be not a very good combination. Oh, I gotta take another sip, sorry. Oh God, so good. Right, so here this painting, no, here, colon, a comma, this painting. This is a painting that takes about 70 layers, I think. 70 layers of paint. And I'm not just guessing, by the way. One time, a long time ago, I actually counted the layers of paint that I used on a painting like this, in this style. And I got to around 70. And that is because when you're working with watercolor, something that new watercolorists find very difficult is that when you work on one area, you have to go back into the painting and also work on another area to, for the saturation, for the contrast, for the colors and everything, to get a really well balanced image. So this takes a lot of layers, and that's not a real problem. But you know what the problem is with these layers? All of those layers need to dry. And when they dry, as an artist, the only thing you can do is stand by and watch. Which is the perfect moment to flip through the news, to browse the news, which is what I did after I quit Facebook. I started to doom scroll through the news. So there are 4 news sites that I have. It's 3 national and 1 local. And I realized COVID, now with the Russian invasion in Ukraine, with the climate things going on, it felt so bad. And right before the summer, I felt so heavy and depressed and tired, and the world seems apocalyptic when you watch the news, and that's not a very good feeling to have. So I read about this book by Rolf Dobelli. I've got the Dutch version, but I will give you the English title. In Dutch, it's called The News Diet. So I'm embarking on a news diet, and I want you to hold me. What's it called again? What's it called again? When you have to answer to somebody about that. Well, anyway, I want to talk to you about how it's going, and when I'm not doing doing the news diet very well, I want you to just tell me off. Right, the English title is, and I love the title because it says exactly what the book is about. Stop reading the news, : a manifesto for a happier, calmer, and wiser life. And the thing is, I grew up with the idea that the news was a responsibility of mine. I had to know what was going on in the world, because then we could do something to help those people in places where things were not going well. Also, I had to read the news because I had to understand things. Well, news was so important to me that when I was in university studying English language and literature, I felt the news was so important that I took journalism as a minor. And let me tell you one thing about journalism back then. And back then is a long time ago, but not that long. And journalism today, they are 2 totally different types of sport. The most important thing that I learned when I took the journalism class, when I did my minor, was that you always had to investigate and hear the news from both sides. You had to know what you were publishing before you published it, period. You couldn't just publish something on hunch. And also, there had to be value in the news item that you were writing. So there had to be a reason for you writing it, or you shouldn't write it at all. Right, so what is the news like today? Well, the news today is fully sponsored by advertisement. And because of that, they need news. Whether there is news or not, they need news. So what you see in the news today, half the news, or even more than half of the news, is opinions by so-called experts, by anybody who likes to be in the footlight for a bit. And it's just opinions, forecasts, ideas about how something's going to develop. I have read the most horrible things about Ukraine and what's going to happen. And it always turned out to be somebody's opinion. It always turned out to be what somebody said could happen. Oh, well, we can fill our entire lives with news flashes about things that could happen. I can make up a couple of hundred right now at this moment. Is that news? Is it something we need to tire ourselves with? I don't think so. Right. So, and then there are news items about things that really happen. And, the best way to get people interested and come back to read about it is to make them as sensational as you possibly can. And also, everybody wants that kind of news, wants to be the first to have it. They no longer investigate what they publish well enough before they publish it. Policy today is publish, and when you find out it's not right, you correct it. But they are basically copying each other, and there are so many mistakes in today's news that could have been prevented just by doing your work right. And I don't even blame the journalists. I mean, journalists are people who are working for very low wages, who are doing a job that's no longer really existent. Not the way I learned how to be a journalist. I pity these people. They're all, taking, they're copying their news from online platforms that have the news before. News is also becoming more and more propaganda wherever you live in the world. I have no illusions about the Western news that is less propaganda. Maybe it's a little less obvious, but it's still propaganda in a lot of ways. The news we see today is coloured. And what Dobelli says in his book, and that's a really bold statement, he says, today's news is nothing more than entertainment. And it sounds, if you feel that you have a responsibility to watch the news, it sounds outrageous. But I tell you, read the book, because he's right. He's absolutely 100% right. So what should you do instead if you still want to keep up to date with the world? Well, in the first place, let's say something apocalyptic does happen. You will hear about it from others, from other, radio, whatever. You will find out. But all the other things, the news never explains how conflicts arose, how things are, developing in the world. So if you really want to know about that, you have to try and find articles written or documentaries by research journalists who really, really investigate deeply into a certain topic. Read books like this one, non-fiction books about certain topics you're interested in. That will give you background information. That will make you understand things. The news is it's nothing more than flashlights all the time, even when it seems important. It really isn't. That comes from drinking coffee while talking. Even when talking about Ukraine, I read some very, very horrible things that was said by Zelensky. And then the other day, and I got a bit discouraged and very worried about the situation. And then the next day I read something that was contradicting that very much. So, even when you want to keep up to date with very important affairs that are going on right now in your backyard, basically, even though Ukraine's quite far away, but not that far away when you're talking about nuclear danger. But, it still doesn't help me to understand things. And still a lot of what's in the news today is just propaganda in this war. There's Russian propaganda, there is NATO propaganda, there is Ukrainian propaganda. Everybody has an interest in this conflict. So all the news that we hear is colored by the interest of the party that the news report's coming from. So, and in the meantime, a lot of shit's going on and a horrible situation for people suffering from this war, and all the refugees who are here, amongst others in the Netherlands, who can't go home. And that's really, really horrible. But me watching the news isn't going to help. And me watching the news is also not going to make me understand or get any the wiser for it. So, I had a good internal discussion with myself this summer, because I felt I was draining myself, my energy reserves, by watching the news. And Because there is one other thing I want to say about this that's really important. Dobelli is not the only one who is saying that. There is another really important book I would like to discuss sometime in a studio vlog. I can't. Oh, I always forget this man's name. But anyway, I will talk about that later. But what it boils down to is that what's in the news is just a sensation. The really important changes that are also going on, and the good things, people doing really good things for the world, very good political decisions that will help the world move on to a better place than we are now, are being taken. But those are long processes, boring to report, so they are not being reported. There is no advertiser who chooses that kind of news to have their advertisements hooked up to. So there is a lot of good things happening, but those are slow developments, slow but sure developments, and we don't hear about those in the news. All the time we get this doom thrown upon us. It makes us feel helpless, and also what it does is it polarizes our society, because people are getting scared, people are getting angry because of all the sensational news they hear, and because they don't know the ins and outs anymore, because the news doesn't really give the ins and outs. People become unreasonable, intolerable, prejudiced, and they start believing the fake news, because I don't know why, but it's easier sometimes to believe a shit story that people made up, obviously, than to believe and understand it. You know, sometimes things just go wrong. Sometimes shit hits the fan. Like with COVID, we had suddenly a virus that was threatening us. But rather than accepting that we are just organisms, like plants, like insects, like our dog, like the chickens in your garden, we are organisms, we can get sick. But we've had such good vaccination programs in the past years that these viruses have never really posed a threat anymore. And ironically, instead of realizing that science has really helped protect us for so long, has made us, invincible almost, not me, but many people started believing that this virus was just a lie, and that science was, I don't know, vicious, vile, evil. I find it very difficult to see how these days the media have a debilitating effect on our society, and also on the capacity to think properly anymore. There are people who say all this fake news is to blame, but the regular media are also to blame. They have the responsibility to give us proper news, which they don't. The only proper news that can be found, there are some really, really good news sites. You have to pay for them, because they have to pay the journalists to do their work well. But who pays for such news sites? Only very few people who already understand how it works, but the majority of the people don't understand the mechanism, and they stay trapped in this sensationalism, in this entertainment type of news, and they might get easily distracted towards fake news, because the difference between the real sensational news and fake news is getting smaller and smaller, and that I find a terrifying development in society that I don't even really want to think about too much, because people can be really vicious, but give people the wrong kind of information that they become really super vicious about, and then you've got yourself a problem. I mean, in World War II, propaganda and fake news were one of the biggest motors that Hitler used to get people on his side, or to get people scared and to cooperate. So after I read this book, and even before that, because I've already been reading articles, there are so many people, quitting reading the news. So many artists, scientists, musicians, free thinkers who are leaving. They are leaving Facebook, but they are also leaving the news. And that's not for no reason. So if you ever find yourself feeling drained after watching the news, then I think reading this book would be a very good idea, at least, and make up your mind about it, and then, you know, see if it means anything to you, and if what it does for you if you're away from the news for a while. I had a very news-free couple of weeks during this summer, and it really did change my perspective on the world. Then I got home, and there were some things going on. It was a really hectic time, and I fell back into my old habits, and I'm feeling drained again very quickly. So I said to myself, look, I'm going to just say this out loud in a vlog. I want to professionalize, so I need my focus for my work. I need my focus for my own development, and the news is just another Facebook. Basically, it's noisy. It's no longer the news that we knew back then when I was young. No, it really isn't. And for me, it's time to say goodbye. I do read background information, by the way. I read lots of non-fiction, a lot about nature, and I found a book, and I just, to my shock, I found out there is no translation. I want to take another sip of coffee. It's going cold. I think next time I will do a vlog after my coffee, because I never manage to drink my coffee during a talk. You don't talk back, or maybe you do talk back, I just don't hear you. It's so good. Right, there is a new little book by Jostein Gaarder, a Norwegian writer. He's the author of Sophie's World, which is a novel, a young adult novel about the history of philosophy. He wrote a book, Wij zijn de wereld, we are the world, and it is a letter. This book is a letter that he wrote to his grandchildren with his philosophy of life. And this is I love reading this book. I'm only you know, only read 20-25%, but it's a gorgeous book. It makes me think about it. The way he thinks about life touches my way of thinking about life, and reading this book, because he wrote it as a letter, it feels like I have this intimate conversation with a very beautiful mind, and that sure beats reading the news. And I'm also currently reading a book. I've just begun reading a book about, but I definitely want to talk about that too in a vlog. It's about places that were once inhabited by people, or, you know, where there was a factory or something, and then the people go either by a disaster, or they just move on, and then nature takes over those places. And it's a gorgeous and comforting book. You know, sometimes I feel that we have to save nature, but the thing is, we have to save ourselves. Nature doesn't really need us, not at all. You know, and I would really love humanity to just wisen up a bit, and to understand that the way things are working now isn't going to work out, so that maybe it's time to do something to cooperate, stand together, and to take the proper decisions in very many areas. But, you know, if we fail to undertake the right actions, should we fail, then I do feel some comfort in knowing that nature will go on without us. And how it works. This book is sort of like a little perspective on what would happen if we weren't here. And partly it feels sad. It feels like thinking about the people you love after you're gone. That's a heart-wrenching and stomach-clutching thought. But at the same time, in this book at least, there is beauty in knowing that there will be life after us, after me. Yeah, right. A heavy topic, sorry. But it is a book that I found a bit difficult to start reading. You know, Because I've been so uptight about the news and everything that's been going on in the world that I have had years of needing, feel good movies, feel good books, and I wanted everything feel good. And I think I am sinking back into the reality of knowing, okay, the news is not really, don't need that right now. And I don't want to contaminate my mind with all these things. I mean, I want to dive into my trees. I want to paint big versions of trees like these. So, got plans already. And I want to think about things properly. I don't want to. What the news does is it picks at my brain all the time. It's like prick, prick, prick. There's constant, these like horrible things people say. Like there was suddenly there was this thing in the newspaper on one of the news sites that said there's a very big chance that there will be a nuclear bomb, and then there will be a NATO conflict involving all Europe and then the entire world. And it was like, whoa, I read that and I felt immediately, completely taken aback and completely devastated, basically. And then I read the article again, and then I saw it was just the opinion of what some fellow in the British something thought could happen. But it's like, everything could happen. Anything could happen. But don't bombard us with stuff like that all the time. And that too is just propaganda. It's like we want to make people scared to support whatever military intervention the NATO or Europe or England or whatever wants to take, of course. But it's really, really worrisome reading all that stuff. And no. Right. We have to liberate ourselves from burdens that are not ours to carry. And the news, I feel, the problems that are going on in the world, those we do have to carry. But there are actually things we can do about some of those things. We can't do a thing about everything, but we can pick a few things and we can make the world better, starting in our own world. If we know that one of the neighbors is very lonely and old and has a hard time going shopping, we can ask them, can I bring you something when I go to the supermarket? When we see that maybe elderly people don't eat very healthy anymore because they find it difficult to cook, we can bring them some soup when we cook soup. When we see that children are walking in the street all the time, not really being at home, being a bit lonely, doesn't really happen a lot with games anymore today, but sometimes we do see it. We can just make contact. Who are you? How are you? What are you doing? We can just mind our own world a little bit more. If you want to do something for the environment, stop getting rid of all the weeds in your garden. Just let some of them grow, and they will provide a lot of living space and food for all kinds of insects that really need your garden right now, because the natural world, at least here in the Netherlands, the biological variety in the fields has gone down, has nearly disappeared. So the biological variety now is in our garden. So what do? We don't get the weeds out anymore. Not all. Some, but not all. Does it look pretty? Not always. Sometimes prettier than we think. But you can do little things. And helping the insect is helping the birds, because our garden is full of insects, so we always have birds here who come to forage. So little things we can do. And if all of us do little things, we can make this world a better place. Can we save the world? I'm not sure. There are so many things going on. It only takes one dictator somewhere in the world to do something outrageous, and the whole world's got a problem. But there is one question that helps me think about how I want to live. It's a very profound question that I learned during the Jeremy Lent course. And it is, what kind of ancestor do you want to be? What kind of ancestor do you want to be? Because we don't only live for ourselves, we have children, and they might have children. What kind of a world do we want to leave for them? And what kind of example do I want to set for my children? With that profound question, I want to end this studio vlog that's become very, very long. So one thing I found out about this camera phone is that it will shoot very long videos without, stopping. So the battery life is really good. Now I'm going to blow up this image on my computer. I'm going to see the quality. I turned on some lights. So I hope it doesn't really blow me away. And likewise, we'll just see. And I'm not really sure if I have filmed full screen or that I'm seeing the black sides only on this screen and not on the computer. We'll see. We'll just have to see. I hope the sound is a lot better than it was of my old camera. I don't have a lavalier microphone yet, but that's because I don't really want to invest in studio equipment. As you know, I am not a filmmaker. I'm an artist, and I am sharing some of my process. So right, one of the next videos is going to be a review about this lovely Roman Schmal Aquarius watercolor set. Not getting paid for it. I did meet up with Roman Schmal. It was a really, really great meeting I want to tell you all about. But I really do want to say, I do want to do a shout out for this set of painting, because I've talked too long, I'm getting to blab. I do want to do a shout out about this paint because it's really a great set. So, and I'm sure that some of you will love this. So thank you very much for watching. If you like my big babble, then give your thumbs up or subscribe to my channel, because that really helps in getting me up in the search results, because the algorithms of YouTube are going right after Facebook and Instagram. The views are going down big time. Well, it just happens, but it really does help to know that people are actually viewing the videos you're making. And also, if you like, you can subscribe to my newsletter of my artwork. There's going to be big changes on my website and in my art practice. And I'm going to do a Mandy's Monthly, which is going to be a monthly newsletter. And there's going to be, I'm going to be talking about, my process of the month, the things I've been working on. There's going to be exclusive content, probably video. And that will be the first place where I show, where when I release new work and what I'm working on. And I'll also be sharing the stuff that has inspired me lately. So things that I don't necessarily share on my blog or here in my vlogs. So there is some exclusive content there that might be very inspiring and interesting. And, that can move in all directions. It probably will definitely contain a link to Jostein Gaarder this time. And it will probably definitely contain a link to Dobelli's news diet book, which is called, in English, once again, Stop Reading the News. So, but there will be lots and lots more, because I've seen a beautiful, beautiful bunch of movies lately, and I definitely want to share that with you too. So, right, now I'm really going to stop talking. I'm nearly at 50 minutes. Thank you very much for watching, and look at the links below, and I hope to see you again in the next video. Bye.